Hey everybody, this is OC Steve with a review of X-Men Dark Phoenix. As you can tell in the background, I'm kind of a bit of an X-Men nut. When it comes to a lot of properties in Marvel Comics, I would say my tried and true anything that I would go to would be the X-Men. Not necessarily the biggest Spider-Man fan. I'll go see a Spider-Man movie, but if I gotta pick my brand within Marvel Comics, it's definitely X-Men. This was the first time that I did not see an X-Men film in theaters just because of the bad reviews, the controversy behind the reshoots, Disney influencing those reshoots to make sure that it wasn't similar to Captain Marvel. So that being said, this is just my own personal 2 cents and a review of X-Men Dark Phoenix. For the most part, the movie's okay. It kind of plays by the numbers, and the opening parts of the movie are very similar to the comic book. The origin of how Jean Grey becomes a ward of Charles Xavier and how she becomes an X-Men. The X-Men are celebrities now in the 1990s. In fact, they are ordered by the president to go save some astronauts that suffer jeopardy in space. And during that rescue attempt, that's when Jean gets bombarded by the Phoenix Force, so to speak, that starts to augment her powers and remove some of those mental barriers that Charles put up. Through that whole process, she starts to become aware of her powers, that she's actually a lot stronger than she initially thought. And with her telepathy, she finds out that her father is still in fact alive, which causes her to go seek her father out, answering questions of why she was abandoned and left to Charles, and that this lie was continued on by both of them. The X-Men come and confront her and ask her to come home. She starts to lash out with some of her Phoenix powers and inadvertently kills Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence. You can kind of tell this was a little forced, so to speak, that Jennifer Lawrence was just kind of over being Mystique in the X-Men film. So, I mean, this is only like maybe 25 minutes in, and they kill off Mystique, which has been a major character for this X-Men series of the First Class era, if you will. So then they're kind of all distraught. They don't know what to do. They don't know who Jean is really that much anymore. So Jean, looking at trying to control these raging powers inside of her, seeks out Magneto. At this point, Magneto, who should be in his late 50s, early 60s, no white hair, no aging effects whatsoever, doesn't even look like Ian McKellen at all, or let alone white hair, is talking to Jean, wondering why she wants asylum. And then they're confronted by the military really quick, and then Jean starts lashing out with her powers, attacks some of the military guys. They escape in a very awkward attempt in a helicopter. It was just kind of weird. It was very forced. I didn't really understand it. And then she is found by these kind of makeshift aliens. They never mention the name of the alien race in the movie. You don't know if they're Skrulls, but they're shape-shifting aliens that can mimic people and have telepathic powers. So the best way to describe them is they kind of look like the M. Night Shyamalan aliens from Signs. So these Sign aliens take the form and the leader, Jessica Chastain, of a woman, and they seek out Jean Grey, and they're kind of encouraging her to use their powers because they have their own agenda where they want to try to find the Phoenix Force or whoever's embodying it to rekindle their race, as the Phoenix Force kind of wiped them out. So she's taken asylum in a well-established mansion in New York, which causes Eric to find out that Jean was responsible for the death of Raven, aka Mystique. There's a weird storyline where Beast just doesn't trust Charles anymore, so he teams up with Eric. They kind of have a makeshift fight. There's a whole scene where it makes no sense. I mean, Magneto's strong enough to lift a baseball stadium in X-Men Days of Futures Past, and there's no rhyme or reason or logic. He lifts the subway up, moves it in the way of the X-Men. And then, everybody's fought. Jean is slowly making Charles walk up the stairs, which isn't so much cruel as it is kind of an awkward scene. That was a bad kind of directorial choice in my mind. So he's walking up there, and then the Jessica Chastain character is telling Jean if she can't contain the Phoenix Force powers, that I'll absorb it so you don't have to bear it. and then she's silently or on the side talking to Charles going, yeah, you know what, I really don't care. I'm going to scorch this earth and I will rebuild my alien race on the ashes of your own planet. Then Cyclops comes in, hits her with a blast. Everybody's kind of just spent and knocked out. So they're taken by the government's mutant corrections department and transported via train to, I would assume, a facility, but they are stopped by the alien forces, which leads to the big confrontation in the movie where both sides, Magneto's forces and Charles' forces, join together to fight these weird telepathic, unstoppable aliens that are just absorbing bullets like a sponge left and right. There's a really cool scene in that where Nightcrawler kind of just decides to give up his whole idea of nonviolence and just goes to town and starts killing alien left and right. Multiple are just dropping down. Magneto has a cool moment where he literally controls all the guns and aims them at the Jessica Chastain alien, but it does no damage really to her because she's kind of absorbed a little bit of the Phoenix Force at that time. So then Xavier's able to wake up Jean. They kind of have a faux Dragon Ball Z fight with their Phoenix Force powers. She takes out a majority of the aliens, then grabs the Jessica Chastain character and does, like Dragon Ball Z, goes up into the atmosphere and explodes a la a Spirit Bomb style explosion. Then we kind of fast forward a couple months later, where Charles and Eric have decided to give up and let the next generation of mutants become the new teachers and help shape that culture, where Beast is now the head master of the Jean Grey School of the Gifted Youngsters. With all that, it was okay. It was a first outing for Simon Kinberg, who has typically written the scripts for all the other First Class movies, so I can't be too hard on that. You could tell that there was a lot left on the cutting room floor with the reshoots. Some of the scenes were better for the most part, but it was just a solid C. It was a bittersweet ending to this era of X-Men films, because we all know, in given time, that Marvel is going to make their own version of the X-Men, and they'll rekindle all this all over again. But this is the end of an era for the 20th Century Fox of X-Men films. The other thing that was kind of weird is this was the movie that didn't have two things. One, it didn't have a cameo from Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, because this was post-Logan, and it didn't even have a cameo from Stan Lee, as this was made and produced for the most part with reshoots after his passing as well. So it was bittersweet. I understand why a lot of people weren't fans of it. Overall, I'd probably give it a C. And since it's an X-Men film, I'm going to give it a D-. So, you know what? Let's get a conversation going. Let me know what you thought of X-Men Dark Phoenix. What are you looking forward to with the new X-Men films being done by Marvel? Who do you want as Wolverine? Who do you want casted in general in these films? So put your comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're an X-Men fan, let's share this video and get the conversation going so we can tell Marvel moving forward what we want in an X-Men franchise that's going to be incorporated into the MCU. And as always, thanks for watching my video, and Excelsior!